So I'd like to welcome everybody today to the October 12th Policy Development and Strategic Direction Committee agenda. Nancy, have you had a chance to do attendance?
Yes, I have. Thank you.
Okay, thanks. Do we have any additions to the agenda for today? Councillor Coleman, did you have a change? No? Okay. So do we have a motion to approve the agenda? Moved by Mayor Bailey, seconded by Councillor Pierce. All in favor? Any opposed? Seeing none, we passed. Any declarations of pecuniary interest, please do so at the time appropriate. Do we have any delegations, petitions, or presentations tonight, Nancy?
No, we do not.
Okay, thanks. Adoption of the minutes from the previous meeting, 5-1. Do we have a motion to move? Moved by Councillor Miller, second by Councillor Bell. Okay. All in favor? Okay. Any opposed? Okay, motion's carried. Business arising from the minutes. Do we have any? Okay. Seeing none, consent items, none to be done today. So we go on to number 8, staff reports. 8.1, RPT 21-260, recommendations postponement of the 55 plus games for February 2022. Donna Clement, if you would like to, Joan?
I was going to move the recommendation, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. And do we have a seconder? Second by Councillor Leferrier. Okay. And do we have some comments or questions about this recommendation for Donna? Okay. Would Donna like to say anything about it at all, or before we vote? Councillor Pierce.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Through you, if I could. Well, I see Donna's off of mute now, so if it's okay with you, I'll let her go.
Yeah.
So much through you, Mr. Chair. Just as I guess a wrap up, we had a conference call with the Ontario Senior Games coordinator today, and we're not the only ones that are going through this. Other communities are as well. We do have an opportunity to bring back to council the opportunity to host the 2024 Winter Games or the 2023 Summer Games for the 55 plus age group. So we're just working through that now. So we haven't lost the opportunity. We had to postpone based on costs and because of our current climate, but we are definitely interested in moving forward with another opportunity in the next year and a half or 2 years.
Okay. Do we have any questions or comments for Donna? Councillor Coleman? No? Okay. Councillor Pierce.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Through you, if I could, as council rep on the Plus 55 Games Committee, I just wanted to express my thanks to the committee. It's a bunch of dedicated folks on that committee, and it was not an easy decision to come to. There was a lot of discussion around what would be best to do and what would be the safest thing to do. And unfortunately, at the end of the day, this is a decision that was made. And I was not that we liked the decision, but I was in favor of the decision when it was voted on at the committee level, because I think it's the right thing to do. Unfortunately, the times we're in, and just with the logistics of what was going to be asked of extra costs and stuff like that, as I say, I think it was the right thing to do. But I wanted to express my thanks on behalf of council, if I could, to the committee and the hard work that they've done to get it this far. And as I say, I know it wasn't an easy decision, and I look forward to hopefully being involved when it comes around again. Thank you.
Okay. Yeah, I'd just like to echo what Councillor Pierce said that, and I don't think the work that they've done is going to be wasted, because we'll have all that going forward for our next event to plan. And I can imagine all the work that's gone into to this point. It must be heartbreaking to have to cancel it. So it's like so many things under COVID. But we are seeing the light at the end of the tunnel, so I'm looking forward to that, that's for sure. So if we don't see any more comments, then we have a motion and we have it approved and second. All in favor of the motion? Okay. Any opposed? Okay, thanks. 8.2 RPT 21-261 County of Brent Rural Community Improvement Plan. Zach Gable. Zach, would you like to speak?
To you, Councilor McAlpine. I didn't have anything prepared, but I'm happy to answer any questions if there are any.
Okay. Do we have some questions for Zach in regards to this? Councillor Wheat.
I'll move the recommendation to get it on the floor first.
Okay. Second by Mayor Bailey. Okay. And any questions for Zach? Councillor Miller.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. A couple, if I could. Three to Zach. Who are you targeting? Who's your target or who's your market? Or what is your market here?
Yeah. So through the chair to you, Councilor Miller. So we'll be taking some time to do a review of best practice, but our target is around agricultural operators that are either offering, say, a direct selling, so think of your on-farm retail, on-farm processing kind of opportunities, as well as those kind of farm experience, educations, and agritourism kind of experiences or opportunities. So the focus is basically a tool to help implement more value-added agriculture activities and opportunities within the county.
Okay, thank you, Zach. Just through you, Mr. Chair, just to be clear, that you're targeting farmers and not rural residents, and rural residents. You're targeting farmers. Is that? Am I hearing you correct?
Yes, to the chair, to you, Councilor Miller. The focus very much is the agricultural sector. Through our review, if there's other opportunities that you might want to consider, we can take a look at it. But the focus very much is as a tool to help build our agricultural assets within the community.
Okay. It sounds like, okay, so you're helping them with maybe expanding new business ideas or expanding current business ideas. Fair enough. I don't know. Any thoughts on what kind of budget you'd be looking at, Zach? Or are we too premature at this point? Ballpark.
Yeah, through the chair. So within the report, it's kind of hard to give a trend, say, on the downtown program, just because of COVID. We've kind of had that interruption. Once we roll out a program like this, I imagine there'd be less applications coming to council, say, a handful per year. The funding grants, the grant values might look a little different because we're mainly looking to tackle issues that happen through the building code. Basically, when you're taking an agricultural property and inviting the general public in, lots of things have to happen. But the idea is that, it's all the work's done in-house, and we will be using the current capital budget. So hard to give a dollar figure per se. I hope that helps.
I guess we'll see it when we see it. So thank you, Zach. Just a comment, Mr. Chair. I'm a bit split on this. I appreciate what the economic department's trying to do to expand the business. At the same time, to me, if we want to help out farmers, we want to help out rural residents, we should give them, good roads, preferably hard surface. We should expand broadband, and we should expand natural gas. I think that helps everybody. But at the same time, I don't expect the economic development department to be all things to all people. But like I said, I would prefer if we focused on that more. Like I say, that just, to me, that just improves everybody in the rural areas standard of living quite a bit. So, but I understand. I think we can do both. I think we'll leave the economic development to these guys, and we as a council will keep working on those good roads, broadband, and natural gas. So I guess I'll support it. We'll see what Zach and the team have when they come back. So thank you.
Councilor LaFerriere, and then
Yeah, thank you.
Councilor Gatward.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yeah, I understand Councilor Miller's concerns, just a comment, but I do think that this does provide some equity, or I should say equality, between the 3 downtown cores and similar types of businesses that will have things like farmers markets. And I do think it does go really nicely hand in hand with what's happening with the on-farm diversified uses. And so I think that's something to keep in mind. I guess I do actually have a question for Zach, and that would be, if this is a success or not. I wouldn't personally want to see us using this for the home-based business piece yet, but is there a possibility in the future to utilize some of this for that? And could there be complications with that, because that could be too big a target? I was relieved to hear you say that focus is going to be on farms at this time for that reason.
Through the chair to you, Councilor LaFerriere. I guess generally speaking, community improvement plans have been used for a lot of creative and new uses. We have some great examples of, let's say, your classic CIP, where you have a downtown plan, here's the geography, and if you're in, you're eligible, if you're not, you're out. In terms of CIPs where it's more of the use opposed to the geography, they are out there, and we'll be reviewing them. So down the line, I think it could be a consideration. But I think for now, our focus is to kind of continue working with those on-farm diversified uses and hone in on that target, which is the agricultural sector.
Thank you.
Councilor Gatward, you're on mute.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Through you to Zach, at page 35 of 54, the chart that you produced, it's a good chart. It says at the top, right above the line, Downtown Community Improvement Plan. And then there's a third box down, says Upper Story Apartment Improvement Grant. And it says it's to encourage improvement of apartment units in upper stories of mixed use buildings. So if this is a rural agricultural focus, how would this box for apartments fit?
Through you to through you, Councilor McAlpine, to Councilor Gatward. The chart that was included is just the existing programs that are available in our downtown CIPs. Just for background, on to kind of give you a feel for what the programs could look like. When we bring forward an actual CIP that's agricultural targeted, you would not see a program for an apartment. It would be very much developed to meet the immediate needs of that sector.
So, yeah, some farmhouses may have apartments upstairs. I really don't know. So this wouldn't apply to assistance for bunkhouses then, for farmers.
To the chair, to you, Councilor Gatward. As part of our review, that's something we could take a look at, but the focus would be more on, what needs to happen to the property to invite the general public, and less so on the development of, say, bunkhouses, as an example.
Okay, thank you.
Do we have any further questions? Councilor Coleman.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and more a comment going along with what Councillor Miller had said. And I fully agree with Councillor Miller. I have reservations too on this, but I think he named off the number of things that we could help improving in the rural areas for agriculture. But I think he forgot one big point was of lowering the tax rate down for non-residential farmland from down, it is 24 now, and we could lower it lower yet to help assist all agriculture in the county of Brant. Thank you.
Okay, thanks. So I had a question for you, Zach. I was just wondering, did that include this program, say for bed and breakfasts, if somebody wanted to set one up in the rural area, and also some of the smaller towns, if they were doing improvements for signage and facade improvements, say in Scotland or water down or someplace else, or Oak Hill, I should say, and Glen Morris, if they had businesses there?
You, Councillor McAlpine. I think that's something we could consider. You know, the focus, I think, first and foremost will be agriculture, but there are some other examples out there where funding has been extended to kind of other targets. So I think, you know, the wider you open something up, the kind of the less impactful the program starts to become. So, you know, whatever we bring forward, we'll have to make sure we're kind of supporting things that make sense. And through this program, you know, there might be an opportunity because B&Bs could operate as an on-farm diversified use. So there's potential for some of those to be funded.
Okay. Do we have any, Councillor Chambers?
Just through you, Mr. Chairman, to Zach, I'm just wondering if you could outline a time frame that you're looking at to bring the draft report back, and whether the upcoming budget session applies, or will this be into the next year?
Through the chair to you, Councillor Chambers. With the development of this program, community improvement plans are created through Section 28 of the Planning Act. And for this to come forward, it would have to basically follow our official plan. So it won't be in place until the new official plan is in place. So it would not impact this upcoming budget. It would be, you know, potentially something staff would work towards too for 2023.
Councillor Miller.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just a thought in that a few years ago, there was the Sand Plains Development Fund that was for the former tobacco areas. I forget how much money was set aside, but the grants weren't huge per applicant, but they did help out. And I don't know, maybe through SWIFT you can talk to Kim Earls, she might have some information on that. But I know, and the only reason I mention this because I know a lot of the places that they funded are still operating today. We've got some lavender farms, which we actually, my family and I went and visited a couple months ago. There's a few wineries still going. I think they helped out Gun Hill Cheeses there in Oxford. So there's a lot of good program, you know, business ideas that came from the rural areas. So like I say, you might want to, if you can, Zach, is just look at some of those projects. Because like I say, I mean, I've seen a lot of, you know, money thrown at various projects over the years where they just simply failed 2 years later. But for some reason, a lot of these were successful and they're still successful today. So just a thought.
Okay. So do we have somebody that would like to move the recommendation? Moved by Councillor Wheat, second by Councillor Howes. Okay. Any further comments? Okay. All in, oh, Councillor Miller?
I'm sorry. Kim Earls is that score, not Swift. So, score. My apologies.
Oh, okay. Okay. Thanks for that clarity. Okay. Anything else? Okay. We have a motion to move in second. All in favor? Okay. Any opposed? Okay, motion is passed. 8.3, RPT 21-273, alternative voting methods, Heather Boyd. So, do we have somebody to, Heather, would you like to make some comments?
No, it's just a report that you've seen pretty much the same from last term of council. So it's just for committee's consideration, and I will answer any questions.
Okay. Do we have some questions for Heather? Councillor Coleman.
No question, Mr. Chair. Just going to move it to get it on the floor.
Okay. Moved by Councillor Coleman, second by Councillor Pierce. Okay. And do we have some questions now that's on the floor? Councillor House.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Through you to Heather. Heather, presumably we would all hope that this approach would assist our municipality in getting a higher voter turnout. Can you, just for the benefit of people who may be watching, can you tell us the percentage of eligible voters that we actually had turning out for the election last time?
For the last several elections, we've averaged close to 30% at each election in terms of voter turnout. It's been a little bit lower than some of the other area municipalities. And internet voting as an alternative method of voting, I would expect it may help a little bit, but a lot of the turnout in the election depends on things like who's running and the issues and whether any of the wards are acclaimed. Things like that have a bigger impact than the actual voting method. I'm not sure why, but it's been proven having more ways of voting increases it marginally, but I mean, we're not going to see like some fantastic change here from this.
Okay, that's good to know. Thank you.
Councillor Chambers.
Thanks, John. I'm going to leave it up to you. I don't know whether you want to hear an amendment to the recommendation or whether we can vote on the various recital clauses, or if I can ask that one be voted separately, I would do that. I'll leave it up to you. I have some issues with suggestion of internet voting, and having heard Heather just basically comment that it's a misconception that it does improve voter turnout. But my concern is, and I'm sure Councillor Wheaton, Councillor Coleman, and Councillor Gatward, and I think Councillor Miller can remember a few elections ago, and it's not a cliche, one vote does make a difference. In Ward 4 a few elections ago, one of the candidates was declared or assumed to have won the election by one vote election night, which prompted a recount, which ended up in a tie, and a decision was pulled out of a hat. So two people actually won, lost, and tied in the same election. So don't ever think that one vote doesn't make a difference. And in that particular election, the paper trail was very important with regard to the recount. And I can see issues with internet voting if the margin is razor thin to that degree, and it can and has happened. That's one of the issues with internet voting. The other is we're a little bit disingenuous. I don't know how many resolutions we've passed on the reliability of internet in the rural areas. I tried to download my vaccine registration, and my computer froze. And now it says that I've tried too many times to access. And so there are issues that can happen with spotty internet connections in the rural areas primarily. So I'm just as apt to, and it's not a conservative approach, but it's a reliable approach with the elections as they have been. So I'm opposed to the suggestion that internet voting be incorporated into the next election. I would sooner wait until perhaps internet connections are more reliable in the rural areas so that the rural residents are not disadvantaged and perhaps disenfranchised if something goes awry. I don't understand, and I'm not an expert at internet voting. I know some municipalities have done that, and obviously it's a practice that is being used, but in a smaller sampling, smaller errors make a bigger difference. And you don't have to, you can take your statistics courses to say the larger the sample, the less small discrepancies matter. And we're a small sampling with our elections in the various wards. So I would like to either amend the recommendation to remove that particular section, or at least have the opportunity to vote against that particular section. So I'll leave that up to the chairman to decide how he wishes to proceed.
Okay. So Heather, in this case, can we separate that out?
Yep, we
Now
can
we
put
have-
on that clause
We have a
separate.
mover. Okay, Councillor Pierce,
Thank
you're
you,
on
Mr. Chair.
mute. Okay.
No, I'm off there now. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Through you. So I'm just looking for some clarification with Councillor Chambers there. Is he suggesting that there could be issues with the votes cast by internet, or is he suggesting the fact that the rural community may not be able to use the internet? Because it's my understanding through the report is the fact that that's just giving an alternative way to vote. It's not simply saying that that's going to be the way it is. That's just giving an alternative to those who wish to vote electronically. And as far as the potential of the votes going array or the retabulating or the recounting, that's all taken into consideration with online votes. So I'm trying to understand through Councillor Chambers what his exact point is for not wanting that.
If I could just perhaps offer a scenario. Mr. Chambers out there on the Fairfield Road has spotty internet connections, and he decides to vote by internet. And he goes through the process and goes to vote by internet. And at that particular time, something goofs up with the connection or with the unreliability of the internet connection out here on the Fairfield Road. Something may happen that may disenfranchise me unbeknownst to anybody, and I might, who knows whether my vote got voted or not. So those are the kind of issues that could happen. And in situations where small samples, one vote can make a difference. So if my vote got froze on the internet, then that may have been the vote that determined the election. So that's the kind of issues that I can see happening. I know it's remote, but if it happens once, it can have a huge difference to an election. So that's why I'm just as apt to have people do the standard method of voting, mark the X, put it on the ballot. If something, there's the paper trail. It's well regulated. It's well proven. And if something does happen, it can be recounted and seen with your eyes on the vote. So that's my point, John. It's not that I'm not, I trust technology as much as anybody, but I do know in some areas, in the rural areas, the internet can be unreliable. And if that does impact an election, then it shouldn't, and it doesn't need to if we vote by ballot. So that's my rationale, and I just assume, I know we've all been through elections, and we're all used to marking an X, and a lot of the people still like to do that, and I know it's inconvenient in some situations, but it's more convenient to maybe go to your computer and do your thing. But that's my rationale, and I'm not going to beat a horse to death. I don't want my internet to freeze, so I missed this vote. So I'll stop there.
Councillor Bell and then Councillor Wheat.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm fully supportive of internet voting. I think it will bring the opportunity to get younger voters involved in our elections, where having them go to a polling station is probably not on their agenda at all. And just to take Councillor Chambers' point, I do recognise that one vote can make a difference. But imagine that Mr. Bell is driving to the polling station and there's an accident and he doesn't make it in time. I can think of many circumstances in which there can be those kind of situations where you have the equivalent of your internet freezing. So I would encourage us to move with the times and support the internet vote.
Councillor Wheat. And then Councillor Varian.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
You're on mute.
To Councillor Chambers, our clerk has said we can vote on them separately. Do you want to make it a motion to vote on them separately? I will second it. If you'd prefer to be the seconder, I'll make the motion that we vote on them separately.
Actually, we don't have to have a vote. I can just request that as a councillor that
Well, I'll
I'll
support your request.
Okay, thanks, Councillor Wheat. Councillor Leferrier.
Yeah, I guess just I am supportive of internet voting for a number of reasons, but one of the reasons I do understand Councillor Chambers' concern. That said, my question would be for Heather. You know, just in Brantford, they have some rural areas. Have we heard anything from our neighbors where their internet voting, they had these one-offs or these issues, or have you had some of these scenarios that Councillor Chambers has brought up that are potential? Have they happened in the several communities in Ontario that have used internet voting?
I haven't heard of his specific question, but I do know, like last election, there was a problem with one of the providers where they did have some crashing issues, and it took a while for it to reboot, and there was some extension of voting times. So, I mean, it's one of those things, anything can happen with any kind of election voting, and it's, you know, but it's entirely what you're comfortable with. And, you know, it is true, there is no, you know, actual physical paper to look at if we do the internet voting, but they do have their own processes as well for a recount that will stand up in court. So they would have that in line as well.
So as a bit of a parallel process in-person voting, if there's incredibly horrible inclement weather or some sort of weather emergency or some sort of virus or something, we have other options at play. We can extend voting, and we need to at times because of the regular way of voting as well. Like there are options, but at the end of the day, people's votes still have been counted, whether it's electronically or via BNX, even if there are issues at play like inclement weather and things like that. And I mean disaster level weather, not a bad rainstorm.
Yep, at the end of the day, the clerk has the authority to declare an emergency with relation to the election and can implement all sorts of different processes to make sure take as long as it needs to take for the vote to happen.
So one more question, Mr. Chair, through you to the clerk then. So that's good to know too. So then it's also depoliticized because the clerk has that power, it's not coming to an emergency council meeting where somebody's seat might be up for grabs. It's your decision. Okay, great. Thank you. That provides me a little bit of less worry from some of the scenarios brought forward today. Thank you.
Councillor Gatward.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Through you to Heather, the first page, it says that the elimination of in-person election results event and polling location efficiencies. Heather, you'll recall when after the last election, we had an election committee, and I believe a few counselors were on that committee, and we discussed feedback that we got from the public. And I believe there was some suggestions about polling locations. And I'm wondering, Heather, have those suggestions from the election committee been incorporated into your polling efficiencies?
I haven't specifically looked at all the polling locations yet. A lot of that'll depend as things go forward in terms of, COVID and school use and things like that. A lot of the big concerns about polling locations was from 2014. There was a few locations there that people were pretty uptight and concerned about. And I think we corrected most of those for 2018. I don't recall any real concerns about voting locations besides a few people who would rather be voting in a different spot. But I didn't hear any major concerns from 2018.
Thank you for that. And the last thing, under your key benefits, the vote tabulators, and I think they worked quite well for us in the last election. So I'm pleased that they're going to be used again. And it says they can have the results within a half an hour on page 48. But on page 42, it says it should be noted that increasing the number of ways that votes will be cast increases the complexity of vote counting. And it means that it'll be unlikely that voting results will be available as quickly as they were in 2018. As neighboring municipalities experienced technology reporting delays in 2018, hopefully they have all those technological glitches or whatever you want to call them ironed out for this election. Or is it that the two systems don't talk to each other to compile the votes together? The internet and the tabulator voting.
It's just kind of a gamble. Like anything can happen in any of the ways of voting, right? We could have some terrible mishap at one of the locations, and there's any number of reasons why the votes might not come in right away. I'm just saying that the more different ways you're relying on, the more chance that one of them is going to have a problem. And we certainly wouldn't want to push out the results until we were certain that we had them all counted correctly. And 2018, we got it out there really quickly in 2018, but I mean, it was a tremendous effort and everything just ran like clockwork, and we can't count on every single time things running as smoothly as they did in 2018. It worked well, and who knows what'll happen in 2022 and beyond. I mean, you have good elections and you have elections where you do have problems, and it's just the way it is, and you got to roll with the punches. But the more ways you have of voting is the more chance that something's going to have a delay.
Okay, well, thank you, Heather. I thought it was a good report.
Thank you.
Councilor Miller.
Well, thank you, Mr. Chair. I appreciate the fact that there's some potential negatives with internet voting. I think there's also some potential positives associated with internet voting. And I will give you an example. Prior to 2018, the municipal elections in Ward 4, and while the other wards, there was a lot more polls. I think in the last election, we had 2 polls, poll 1, poll 2. But before that, we had the exact number's not important, but it's somewhere like 11 different polls or something like that, just in Ward 4. And poll 1 represented an area, the furthest in the county, the furthest in Ward 4, and that was out by Creditville. I think Nicky's Roadhouse on number 2 highway out that way. And the closest polling station for them was Burford. So distance driving wise, about a 20-minute drive, 16 kilometers, 17 kilometers, 18, sometimes 20 kilometers. Anyways, I looked at those numbers over 2 elections, and poll 1 had the lowest number of people voting of all the polls. They had 10% voting. And I even remember campaign out there thinking, I don't even know why I'm out here. Only 10% of the people vote. And that's unfortunate, because I think when you're on the fringes, sometimes you feel like you're not part of the county. You get less attention paid. And I think if more people voted, I think that would help that situation. And I'm hoping, I guess hope's not the best strategy, but I think that maybe internet voting might change that. And if you looked at the polls over time, you'll always see that the polls closest to the polling stations always had, without fail, they always had higher turnouts of people voting. And it's quite possible that if we do look at internet voting between the two, you might even that out. So those are my comments.
So we have any further questions or comments? Okay, so we have a recommendation and we have a request to move the part about internet voting for a separate vote. Do we have a mover and a seconder for that? Okay, moved by Councillor Howes and seconded by Councillor Wheat. Okay, any further comments or questions? Okay, so we'll vote on the first part. Is that correct, Heather? And then we'll separate the internet voting out.
Yeah, so everything except for clause 2.
Yeah, okay. So all those in favor of the first clause? Okay, any opposed?
That's
Okay,
point of order.
first part's passed.
That wasn't, okay, sorry, that wasn't the first clause. That was all but clause 2.
Yeah, all but
Okay.
clause 2. Yeah.
Just checking.
Okay, so on voting on clause 2, the internet voting, okay, all in favor of internet voting for the 222 municipal elections, all in favor? Okay, those opposed? I believe that is passed then. Nancy, correct? Okay. Okay, we'll move on to communications. And we have no communications. Chief Administrator's Office update. Michael?
Good evening, Mr. Chair. Just a few updates I wanted to provide council. I'll start, as I always do, with the ongoing COVID-19 declared emergency. Our Emergency Operations Center met this morning. We're on a monthly meeting rotation right now, so it's our first meeting in a month. It was generally a meeting that laid out that we are very much in a holding pattern on the COVID-19 emergency. Most of our discussion was around vaccine passports and vaccine policies, as well as capacity limits in county facilities. And there will be some announcements coming out later this week, I believe, on some changes to capacity limits, because the province did amend the regulation on capacity limits earlier this week. And I don't have all the details on that. I think we're still sorting through them. It is fairly complex. So our proof of vaccination activities at our community centers, it was a fairly complex initial couple of weeks after that came into effect, based on the provincial regulations. But things have calmed substantially, and I think that process is running well at the arenas, based on what I've heard from staff. So you'll recall that we were participating on a regular basis on a joint emergency operations center, and the purpose of that was to make sure that the health unit wasn't serving multiple EOCs. So it was the city and Six Nations, as well as a few other partners, meeting with the health unit on a regular basis. So it's been on hiatus for a while, but we are reconvening that group tomorrow. And we'll be looking for some guidance from the health unit on where we think the next 4 to 6 months are going to take us, but in terms of the COVID-19 emergency, because there are certainly some trends related to that situation that are of concern to us. And so we're hoping for some guidance from the health unit on that. So maybe just the last thing I'll mention on an emergency management perspective, not related to COVID-19, but our EOC, our annual EOC training exercise will be held next Thursday. So this is something that we're legislatively required to do, to have a training exercise for our EOC to basically go through a mock emergency to make sure that it understands its roles and it's capable of handling a real emergency. So we're doing a COVID appropriate exercise next week. It'll be a smaller group than our normal large group. And we'll be doing more of a desktop exercise as opposed to an actual working emergency. So I'm meeting with our CEMC, Kent Potriff, early next week to go over the exercise, and then our team will be meeting on Thursday to go through the exercise. And that's a critical piece of our annual compliance report that we provide to Emergency Management Ontario. So you'll be seeing the record of that when you get our annual compliance report, probably in late November. I'll just also mention that city staff will be coming to the Administration and Operations Committee meeting next week to present council with a bit of a review of social services programming, as well as specific programs that they have identified as things that they can bring to the county, especially in the rural village atmosphere, that might be of benefit to our citizens. That presentation will be prior to council starting to receive some of the updated cost sharing agreements that we've been working on for a while. And so the last thing I'll note, that tonight's agenda is a little shorter than maybe some of the recent agendas, but we will be making up for that next week, because the Admin Operations Committee meeting next week will be a fairly substantial one. We have a number of reports. And I will just note to council, we have one report on customer service activities, which probably could have came to this committee. It really falls between the two committees, but staff, it's something that's evolving. We've got some third parties involved with it as well, and we just really needed that little bit of extra time. So you'll be seeing that next week. That's my update, Mr. Chair. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Okay. Do we have any questions from Councillor Pierce?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Through you to Michael. So Michael, as far as the arena and community center facilities with having the security guards there, has there been any thought given as to how long we're going to keep them on board so staff doesn't have to do that?
Through you, Mr. Chair, we haven't actually picked a date. We are intending to wind the security guards down in the next little while. We are going to need some additional staff, so we're out trying to recruit a few extra part-time staff to help us cover those duties. So they're still there right now. They'll probably be there at least for another week or two.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Mike? Okay, well, thank you very much. And I guess we'll move on then to other business. And I don't see any other business at this point. Oh, Councillor or Mayor Bailey.
You missed Councillor Chambers' hand before we went to the next. Councillor Chambers.
Oh, sorry.
Sorry.
Yeah. Do you have a question, Councillor Chambers?
Thanks, Mayor Bailey. Actually, I did have a question to Michael, and he had mentioned that the social services staff is coming to our next, what do we call this particular committee meeting? Did I hear that correctly?
They're coming to next week's meeting, the Administration Operations Committee meeting.
I'm just wondering that tweaks something in my mind that I've been thinking about. You had mentioned the medical officer of health, and I think it would be a good idea, and I know the timing is everything and it's not the appropriate time, but I'm wondering if the medical officer of health couldn't be invited to our one of our meetings at some point to introduce themselves, and for us to introduce ourselves to them, and perhaps there may be some questions that other members of council have of the medical officer of health. We don't all have the opportunity to sit on the Board of Health, and it may be a good thing to invite the medical officer of health to one of these meetings for an introduction. And a similar type of introduction could be with our police inspector. Again, we've had some changes, and it would be nice perhaps for those of us not on the Police Services Committee or regularly interacting with the inspector, the acting inspector, whoever it may be, again, just as an update on these particular meetings. So just a suggestion for future awareness of councillors that may not sit on every committee.
Councillor Pierce.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Through you, if I could just respond to Councillor Chambers in regards to police services and OPP. We have talked as a police services board that that we would like to come in whether it's just the chair or the chair and vice chair, to come into council or to one of our committees, to do just that, to give everybody updates as to potential questions that they may or may not have, that might not be flowing back and forth between the two parties like we think that they are. So that is definitely something that we've thought of from the Police Services Board as well, to come in, even if it's biannually or something like that, right? So it has been discussed for sure, and that was a good idea, Mr. Chambers.
Mayor Bailey.
Through you, Mr. Chair, I think, Councillor Chambers, it was a really good idea. When you sit on most of the boards or a lot of the boards, you just assume people have met people. And when you said that, I thought to myself, I wonder if, they don't even know who the new people are. So it's, now that you've said it out loud, I'm looking at all your faces, and I don't know that you would have met a lot of people. So I think that's good, Michael. Maybe we can work with the clerk and make sure that everyone gets introduced to all the players, because they have been changing and everything is very new. And sometimes we just assume things have happened when they haven't. So thank you, Councillor Chambers.
Yeah, I think that'd be an excellent. Michael, would you like to make a quick comment, or?
No, I concur with the mayor and Ms. Boyd and Mayor Bailey, and I can work on that and get the invitations extended out and coordinate them attending one of these meetings. It's a good topic for this forum. So.
Okay, great. Councillor Bell.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. Indeed, it's a great suggestion by Councillor Chambers. One of the key activities of our new medical officer of health is to meet people, and you can imagine she's got an awful lot of people to meet. But it is true that she does not really know the county very well. And I tried to explain to her the other day that there are differences between what she will have to deal with from the city as opposed to the county. And things like immigrant workers, seasonal workers, represented quite a challenge to the health unit during that summer period. And I think if we can enlighten her on that kind of subject, anything else that's rural or small urban related, it will be very well done. So I will, if Michael is comfortable with that, I'll certainly pass that message directly to Dr. Conley.
Okay. Any last comments or questions for Michael before we move again? Okay. Okay, thanks very much, Michael. So I don't see any other business. So we move, if we could have a motion to go in camera. Moved by Mayor Bailey, seconded by Councillor Coleman. Okay, all in favor? Okay, passed. Yes. So Nancy, can you move us in camera?
Certainly, I'll just be a moment, please.
Okay.
You're on mute, Councillor McAlpine.
Do we have everybody back now, Nancy?
Yes, we do.
Okay. Do we need to move anything from our in-camera meeting?
No, we don't.
Okay. Okay. So then a motion to adjourn then? Moved by Mark LaFerrier, and we find
The equipment, much better equipment than my dad and I have got. And then there was a lady there with an iPad, and the owners of the place make sure that everybody walks away with some good shots.
That's nice.
Okay, I'm ready to go, so I can count you guys in if you want.
That's great. Thank you.
Okay, we're gonna go live in 5, 4, 3.
Good evening and welcome to a meeting of Brant County Council, special meeting. It's not much of an agenda tonight, but there is a little bit. The first thing we're going to do is we're going to take attendance, and we're going to do it the long way, just because it is an official county council meeting. I'm going to call for attendance. Councillor Wheat. Councillor Wheat, no. Councillor McAlpine.
present.
Councillor LaFerriere.
Here.
Councillor House.
Here.
Councillor Bell.
Present.
Councillor Pierce.
Here.
Councillor Chambers.
Right here.
Councillor Miller.
Present.
Councillor Coleman.
Here,
Can you confirm that you're here?
I confirm.
Thank you. Councillor Gatward.
Present.
Thank you. We're all here with the exception of Councillor Wheat. Second thing on the agenda is the approval of the agenda. Are there any additions? No. Approval of the agenda, Councillor Coleman. Looking for a second, or Councillor Pierce? No additions, any comments? All those in favor of the agenda the way it sits? Thank you. Anyone opposed? Declaration of pecuniary interest? Shouldn't be any. Thank you. Number 4 on the agenda is RPT 21-266, the tender award, OPS RFT 21-19, Burford Customer Service Office interior renovations. Can I get a mover?
No move, Mr. Mayor.
Councillor Pierce, seconded by Councillor Coleman. Is there any discussion on the report and the proposal before us? Does staff want to speak to anything? Everything's pretty clear.
I believe Councillor Miller has his hand.
Councillor Miller, yep.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. A question, if I could, given that there was only one bidder, did we pre-qualify this contractor? What do we know about them?
Who's going to speak to that from staff?
Through you, the chair. This is Sean McAfee on behalf of Rob Walton. So we did have 8 bidders attend the job. Stipulated that a lot of the works were to be done after hours, just to not disrupt county operations, and seemed to scare a few. I got a couple of emails indicating they wouldn't be able to meet those stipulations, and we did ask for some references from Nirvana Interiors, and they have quite a list. Actually, their project manager, it seems like they it's a fellow that's branched off onto his own in respect to starting a small company to do jobs like this. There's some U of T jobs, lots of jobs that are similar to this, where they're just not large enough for a bigger contractor to look at, and too small for sort of a general home builder type contractor. So I think we found a good match in what this project entails. As far as the complexity of it, it's really just kind of a furniture, if you will, more prefab furniture, being the millwork and the new front desk, and then the new glazing. So it's not a real complex project, and I was happy to see that this bid was submitted within budget, and it seems like this contractor is is ready to work within our parameters to make this work.
Are you okay with that, Councillor Miller?
I'm gonna have to be.
Yeah, I don't know. Did you want more? Did you want to see things that they've done? Do you want a list of projects that they've completed?
Yeah, if that's okay, maybe with Sean, I could follow up later before council at the end of this month. Would that be all right, Sean? Is there anything you could share?
Absolutely, not a problem at all. I'm used to doing the meetings in Zoom, so I kind of had everything sort of up here. So their reference, Laura Lynn and myself asked for a few of their references and followed up. Because obviously they're a little nervous, of course, when you get one bid, but it just seems like it's a real good fit here. There's some solid experience, municipal, university, but definitely I can provide council with all that information.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'd appreciate that. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Pierce, and then Councillor Bell.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, through you. So I guess the way I look at it, and you kind of alluded to, there was actually, 8 bidders to start, and it was only the after hours thing that kind of chased a few of them away. So I don't think it's necessarily there was only one bidder here. So I get where Councillor Miller is going, but I think the original, we had multiple people in on this. So it wasn't the fact that maybe their price was too high or stuff like that. It was just the fact they couldn't work within the boundaries that we set for them. So I feel comfortable with the diligence that you folks did on this, and I'm good to go with it.
Thank you, Councillor Bell.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you, a question that Councillor Miller raised, almost sort of asked the question, give me the information, I'll decide at the next council meeting. I think we're actually deciding tonight, so I'm not sure, David, you've got that time to take it in.
Councillor Miller?
Yeah, if I could, Mr. Mayor. No, I'm going to support the resolution tonight, but that's the beauty of the municipal schedule. We always got till the end of the council meeting or the end of the month at the council meeting to sober second thought. So
I don't think that isn't the case. I think in this situation.
Oh, you're right. Yeah, my apologies. You're right. Yeah, I'm sorry. I thought we're at a council meeting. So, okay. I mean, at the end of the day, yeah, no, I will support it. I do trust Sean. I think he knows what he's doing. So, but I do like to ask the questions. I think we have to do our part to protect the county's interests. So, and that's what I'm trying to do. So, yeah. And thank you, Councillor Bell. I totally screwed up on that. Yeah, you're right.
Sean?
Yeah, no, truthfully, we now that we know with this, there was funding stipulations that said that we had to have this money spent by the end of this year. And of course, as per usual, at the last minute, we were told, hey, it's okay. Everyone's struggling. No one can get prices. It does not have to be spent within this year. So, had we known that, this would not have been a special meeting for us all. So it would have followed typical council schedule. We will endeavor to still keep tight timelines, but again, it's a very small project, and your property management department here will have real close eyes on it. So no worries there.
Well, Sean, if there's no other questions, I'd like to thank you for everything you're doing during COVID. We've got you running around and cutting your legs off and making you work in crazy conditions and at funny times, and you've never said a word about any of it. So thank you for everything you're doing and how you're doing it. I think if the county knew exactly what you did all day long, they would get tired just trying to follow you. So thank you for what you do.
Well, I appreciate it. I do believe I was built for this job, and I love every day that I get to do it. So thank you.
That's good. So we have it on we have a motion and we have it seconded. Is there any other discussion? All those in favor? Anyone opposed? It's carried. Thank you. Is there anything else for the benefit of the county of Brant? Anyone have anything? Councillor Miller?
We don't have to do readings or anything to bylaws. Do we got to read bylaws?
No, I don't think so. Nope, there's nothing. This is all that was on the agenda.
This was all for me, folks. Thank you very much. I
apologize. It was all for Sean.
we're going to be really happy. This is all funded money, and not to mention just the Burford renovation, but we're also we're doing good things at our roads facilities in our staff spaces by creating better ventilation, better air quality for them. So we're taking good advantage of some provincial and federal money that was there.
Good. Thank you, Sean. Michael, you have something to say before we adjourn?
Yeah, Your Worship, just to Councillor Miller's question, there's no bylaw to this because the staff have delegated authority to enter into the contracts. We just need council to approve the awards.
Yep. The end of a very long day. There's nothing else for the better of the county. Motion to adjourn. Councillor House, thank you. Good night, everyone.